everyone, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. Today I thought I'd take a minute and do a segment on one of my nutrition segment, my Nutrition 101, we're gonna call it. And I am gonna talk about protein today. And so when it comes to a lot of these, what we call macronutrients, which essentially means a nutrient that we need a lot of in our body, easy way to put it, generally, it can get a little confusing, but I like to simplify things. So that's what I'm doing today is I'm gonna simplify protein. Okay, so in talking about these macronutrients like carbohydrate, like my previous video I talked about, I usually talk about these nutrients in breaking it down to 3 to 4 different ways. The first thing I usually mention is I talk about what is that nutrient, like what foods are considered, for example, protein. And the other thing I talk about in relation to protein is things like the time we should eat, those sort of foods, the portion, and then really what is a protein. Okay, so that's what we're gonna go through. So let's start with what is protein. So and I'm not gonna go super deep, but what we need to understand about protein is, as much as most of us know, if I said to you, what's the purpose of protein, which I often quiz my clients, they generally come up with the answer of it's for building muscles, and they're right. Protein is a building block for our bodies as amino acids. It helps our bodies to repair and rebuild and regenerate. Those are some main things. They're actually really good for recovery. For people who have injuries, you need to make sure that you have enough protein in your diet because it does help your body on recovery. There's actually a list of like 10 different things that protein does for your body. So it's really, really important, okay? So we know that. And so when we look at protein, not only is it good for recovering and regenerating cells and building muscle, what I love about protein is the digestion time. On average, it takes anywhere between 3 to 5 hours to digest and break down protein in your stomach. So what that means for us is it's going to keep us full. So protein is really important to include throughout our day and often, and for various reasons. So when we're looking at protein in general, there are a lot of foods that what I call are cross-category foods, meaning they're proteins, but they also can be a fat, or a protein that also could be a bit of a carb. So when we talk about the pure protein-based foods, we know what those are. Those are pretty much your meats. That's eggs, some of your dairy. You know, some of my favorite, like we talk about meat, you all know what meat is considered. It's interesting because you can have your typical meats like your beef and pork and chicken and stuff, but I have a lot of clients that also do a lot of game. And what's interesting about game and things like people who go hunt elk, deer, super duper lean, high in protein and really low in fat versus some other types of meat. So there is variables of fat content differences, but I'm not gonna go there. And then when we look at things like dairy, it's so fascinating when you look at things like cottage cheese or Greek yogurt. 3/4 cup of cottage cheese or 1 cup of Greek yogurt will give you the same amount of protein as eating about a 4-ounce chicken breast. That's pretty significant, so it's an awesome food. And it just depends with cottage cheese. Typically you can eat it plain, you can add fruit to it, you can put on top, my kids like sprinkling on top of, you can put on tomato. I've had people tomato slices on, you can do anything to it. But the reality is, don't underestimate some of those foods for protein content. And then we go and we shift over to some foods that are called the middle or in between, or the combination foods. When we talk about grains, for example, quinoa, Q-U-I-N-O-A, quinoa. Most people pronounce that wrong. It's kind of fun, but either way, that is a neat grain because it's one of the only grains that actually has the complete amino acid compounds, the same thing as meat. That's amazing. That's an amazing thought. And then when we go look at another type of foods, we look at things like nuts or seeds, things like that, or even beans. These are cross foods because all of these have things like not only just protein, but they'll have some carb, or not only protein, but have quite a bit of fat. For example, nuts, I put them more in a fat category because honestly, they have more fat than protein. So anyway, generally with a lot of foods, you can have some of these cross categories, but they can be good ways to still amp up your protein throughout the day by adding them to your diet. So when we talk about when to put them in your day, so let's go back to the original statement of when I said that protein is good for repairing and rebuilding tissues, cell regeneration. The key with protein, and don't forget the digestion time. The key with protein is make sure that you have it throughout the day, have it in your snacks, incorporate it everywhere. We're looking at some of the main meals, like make sure, and I tell my clients, people who have protein for breakfast more often, like a protein significant breakfast, eggs, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, protein-based smoothies, etc., actually do better when it comes to weight management than those people who have more carbohydrate focused breakfast. So throughout the day, get the protein in breakfast. It'll keep you full. It'll help lower your blood sugars through the entire day and keep you on track, keep you from craving sugars and carbs. Definitely at lunch, at dinner, and then throughout the day, look at ways increasing and putting protein in your snacks as well. Because again, protein will keep you full. So if you're someone that's really trying to stay on track and eat well, ask yourself, am I getting enough protein throughout the day and in my snacks? Because if I'm hungry often, that might be a sign that you're not getting enough protein. And also it can mean that you're eating some other foods that are causing some of those hungers. So as a side note. So again, to wrap it all up, protein is such an important macronutrient in our body. Look at eating it throughout the day. Look at your content, making sure you're eating enough. 2 ounces of protein in a sitting, honestly, even for someone who's a little more sedentary, is not enough. You know, the minimal I ever recommend somebody from a sedentary standpoint is 3.5 ounces of protein and then up. So be looking at that. Are you eating enough throughout the day? So anyway, so that's my spiel on protein. And I'll kind of continue on these Nutrition 101, and I hope they help. I hope they help to expand your knowledge on nutrition, some of the basics. Again, I try not to go super deep on these, but I hope they help. Anyways, have a good day. Bye-bye.